Yeah.
So hi, so hello everyone. So we have Sumitra ma'am with us today, who is an advocate. She's practicing at Supreme Court of India and has done her masters from London, and has also worked in London in a corporate role for 2 years. And she believes in doing a lot of social work, especially in laws related to prevention of sexual harassment at workplaces, and believes in spreading legal awareness through webinars, articles, and lots other medium. So we are really happy to have you with us today, ma'am. So I think we should begin with the podcast. I hope everyone is ready in.
Yeah.
Yes.
I need a good response, guys. Like, yay.
Yes,
Like,
yes.
so I think I'll begin with addressing the elephant in the room. That is the most common issue that is going on in the country right now is about Sushant Singh Rajput case. That his suicide invoked and had various angles attached to it. So my first question would be to know your opinion about how has the media justified its title as the fourth pillar of democracy in the Sushant Singh Rajput case. What will be your thoughts or opinions on it?
Sure. That's a very relevant question in today's time. Yes, media has a right to freedom of speech and fair reporting. That is their duty. But it does not give them the right to invade somebody's privacy. So right from the beginning, we have seen in this case, Supreme Court was also told the media to exercise self-restraint, right, and behave in a certain way. They also have to ensure that they do not breach the code of conduct. What is this code of conduct, and how is it guided? Who is it supervised by or monitored by, or does the media even have a regulatory authority? So that brings us to the question of, is there any law that is regulating the media? The answer for that would be, currently there is no law that is regulating the media, but there are only some regulations, some code of conduct that have been given by certain associations, like the Broadcasting Society of India. So they have these regulations or code of conduct that has been given to the media, and they need to ensure that they adhere to it. Because those code of conduct, if you go through, they're like very nice guidelines and regulations in place. If media follows that, it can definitely be the fourth pillar. But unfortunately, for a healthy and vibrant democracy, what media is doing right now, or breaching the code of conduct, that is not the right way to behave. When it comes to trial by media or trial by people, we've seen that last few months, it has been months now, I can't say weeks. So last few months, whether it is a person, whether it is a agency, everybody has been subjected to media trial. Although Sushant Singh Rajput's case was handled by 3 different agencies. So CBI was there, ED was there, and NCB is already investigating, the police is investigating. Even then, the media did not restrain itself from bringing forward the evidences or trying to scrutinize the witnesses on TV. It is like you are trying to convict somebody even before they are proven guilty, and that is something which is against our yes.
I wanted to ask that, is this turning out to be another Arushi Talwar case where the media is jumping to conclusions without any proof or any backing?
Connectivity
See, I can hear you clearly. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Now we can.
Okay, great. See, the reporters are collecting evidence. They are discussing it in newsrooms. It is definitely a case of invading someone's privacy. The accused has the right to defend herself, and the duty of the media is to report the proceedings fairly. So, if the media can just report the proceedings in the correct way, in its right perspective, that will help. That will not be probably violating or breaching the code of conduct.
So the lawyers representing Sushant Singh's case or Riya Chakravarti's case, they also come out in the media and have a news briefing. So we can say that they themselves, they want media to handle things, or they want, but the media is reacting in other way. So what do you think?
So
Because
what
they themselves
happened?
are coming to the media.
Okay, in this case, I just have to tell you that even when the proceedings are going on in Supreme Court, reporters are allowed. They can see the
Okay.
proceedings, they
Yeah.
can record the proceedings, and they can publish whatever has happened. But there's a certain limitation to it. They can only publish whatever has happened, not what they think or what their opinion is.
Currently, whatever is happening, like we students, we have stopped watching Indian news channels. Like we just don't think that it is anything is just or reasonable also. So it is a bad thing also that because we already don't read newspapers, we all believe whatever is happening like through online, maybe
Right,
through Instagram, or we don't read articles, but we read in
right.
shorts maybe, or maybe any other articles, but not like proper newspapers. So what? But it is wrong, I think, because we are just getting a one-sided view or
I would
Opinion.
That's
like to
right.
add a point here, like what Khyati said, like about the media. So I think print media is doing a better job in comparison to the TV news channels, because what TV news channels are doing is they're just sensationalizing the news, and print media, I think they have enough time. They look at the reports and then accordingly they make a news. So yeah.
That's a good point,
Mm,
Kushi. Right. So print media takes its own time to do the research. They are not glamorizing or
yeah,
sensationalizing a news
right,
piece. They're not worried about those TRPs. But when
Yeah.
it comes to TV or digital media, it is about the ratings, the likes, the number of followers,
Followers.
and that is making them add that extra salt and masala to everything. But then again, when we see that there's a certain proportion of anything that you can add to something, and it has to match, it has to blend. When it starts to stand out, that is when you've crossed the line.
But the people are
right.
enjoying all these things. They're showing this because we can argue. They
People
can
are
argue
watching
that
this.
people enjoy these things, so that is
This
why they're
That
showcasing it.
surprises me also, that have people stopped thinking critically or logically.
Exactly.
How can you just try to seek entertainment out of a news piece?
Right.
I
Ma'am,
think
this is what,
yes.
yeah, Harita, please.
No, no, no. It's just adding to what ma'am said. I think now it's come to a situation where we are giving people what they want instead of giving them what it is. So I
Absolutely.
think when you sensationalize the news to that point where it starts becoming everybody's opinions rather than the facts themselves, then I think media is going a step further than what it should. It is giving us their opinion, so it draws us into polarized opinions, whether you subscribe to this opinion or that opinion. So we're not even able to hear the other side. I mean, like ma'am would definitely agree, like one of the basic principles is audi altrum partem and doesn't necessarily apply just to courts of law or something. As human beings, we always in any sort of conflict, I believe that it is always important to hear the other side, which is the very premise of ADR or any other alternative dispute resolution mechanisms, to just hear the other side. When we, especially, I had watched this particular documentary on Netflix called The Social Dilemma. I'm not sure if any of
Hmm.
you have watched.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That exactly addresses the same issue about how we subscribe to a particular notion and how we are fed over and over again with the same kind of opinions. Rather, we don't even have access to the other side. So I think ma'am brought out that very critical point in terms of addressing that we are just getting opinions, we're not getting facts. Like they decide and tell us what we should think rather than giving us the facts and allowing us to make a decision on that. So I think ma'am, that was like really something that, like you said, because we only have a regulation, there's no law as such. So there are
Yes,
no penal sanctions or there are no, what do you say, consequences for not following these regulations. So I think that is something that
absolutely.
we all need to work on.
I
Ma'am,
think that we start demanding for a media law.
Hmm.
Hmm.
yeah,
Yes,
yes.
I think that would be a step in the right direction. And not just that, because even sensationalized news to some extent has some metric of fact in it. Sorry. But then if we talk about fake
Hmm.
news, problem of then that is a whole different dimension to this altogether, because that does not have any premise of fact in it at all. So when we talk about that, I think ma'am would be in a better position to explain to all the people who are viewing this podcast as to how pertinent this issue of fake news is.
Fake news is a big menace to our society right now. It has caused so much loss and trauma to the societal culture
Exactly
of
right.
India, that we had such good brotherhood, we had a very good relationship existing within the society. Hi, am I audible? Because I don't.
Ma'am,
Yes,
your
You are audible.
but at this little
video
bit
is
of
stuck.
Video.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I was saying that this idea of mob lynching or the hatred that has spread amongst people. We have been living as Hindu Muslims, Christians for a long, long time. We were together for a long time. We never had so much issues. Even now we don't have issues. It is only in the TV. So when you stop watching the
WhatsApp
television,
forward.
there are no
And
issues.
WhatsApp forwards,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. The WhatsApp university that everybody's looking
That
at.
is another pain.
You can't explain it to them. They have read that WhatsApp and they have they have their own opinion and they're not ready to listen also. Like even if they
That is a
correct.
problem even sometimes in my family itself. When I say them something, they say that नहीं WhatsApp पे आया था ये. I said तो क्या हुआ? And they're like
As if
नहीं
someone has
WhatsApp
verified it.
Verified
yes,
it, right?
as if somebody has verified it.
Ma'am, adding to this, what I think is that there is a call for a change from the very beginning itself. Like Harita said, like audio ultram partem, like it is not something that is restricted to codes, but it is actually restricted to every human at all time, all parts of time. So
Yes.
how legal education is necessary, and what do you think is that the new education policy that has come right now, and what scope do we have for legal education right now? Because in our schools we were only given an option of legal education in 11th and 12th, and that was also not compulsory, but it was an optional subject. So
Yes.
what we think as students is that this is something that should be taught from the very beginning, maybe 6th 7th class, because law is not right or wrong, but it is all about forming an opinion and getting
That-
an logical skills. So I don't know, I think this is very important, that needs to be addressed for the people to develop a good understanding maybe.
See, law is important for a society, and it serves as a norm. As in how the citizens are expected to conduct themselves. So if there are no laws, the citizens would not know how they're expected to conduct, or what they're expected to do, what is right, what is wrong, where do they have to draw a line. So legal education basically serves the society by imparting law students that that legal education, making them good law-abiding students. So basically, as citizens of India, we are all expected to be law-abiding citizens. Right.
Right.
So that legal education, at least it is expected that we will try at developing our society. We will try and do things towards social welfare. We will try to better the socio-economic condition of the people. Or as law students, this is expected out of us, that we are the curators of a good society, a good law-abiding society. Legal education should be a very common subject, and everybody should know at least the basics, as in, as a citizen, what are the rights and the duties that are expected out of each and every person. So we study that in civics. So I think my daughter, she's in 7th class, and she has her civics, history, geography. The social sciences already divided into civics, history, and geography.
Yes.
In our times, it was not divided until 9th or 10th class. So they are already studying about this, but when I look at the generation today, or when I look at the common scenario, it feels as if nobody had studied their civics, which was a basic, which was in class. So was it only for marks, or was it only those questions that they had to attempt in the exam, or did they even understand what it means to be a citizen of India?
इंडिया को आज़ादी कौन से साल में मिली?
1949.
Right.
So, ma'am, an important issue that you've picked up here is not the subjects, but the way we are being taught. Like,
The
it's
rote
just for the
learning.
marks.
The rote learning.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the
I
same-
think
law,
Yeah.
as
Hello.
law student
Yes, ma'am.
and as a
Yes.
lawyer, you see there's a lot of gap. So once you've completed your law and you want to become a lawyer, there's a huge gap. There is no connection between what you have studied to what you will be, how you will be practicing. Even this gap needs to be bridged.
Right.
Yes, ma'am. I think you brought up a very pertinent thing to be discussed as we have a very diverse representation here, and I think they'll also be willing to contribute some points to what I would like to put across. So, like ma'am said, law is nothing but how we should, you know, how the society has to conduct itself. But my personal opinion is law is just codified common sense. It's nothing but logic and how we perceive that the society has to work, and laying it down in terms of acts and rules and all that. So ma'am actually brought that point in a very brief and precise manner. So but then adding on to that, the way we have been learning laws, I think that is one way how this Niti Manthan YLQ program is bridging the gap between what we know and what is needed to be known as a law student. I think that's where this program is kind of bridging the gap, because as law students confined in a classroom, we are very disconnected from the society. We often don't get to be a part of this social problems, or we are secluded in a classroom, PPT after PPT, learning about all the laws. But if we don't really have access to that kind of legal aid or legal awareness, um, spreading these sort of initiatives, then the way legal education is supposed to be imparted needs to undergo a major revamp in terms of connecting us with the society. And that is where I think even pro bono litigation and things like that will even be further done with more rigor, rather than just like one of my professors keeps saying this, but I don't know if it's the right thing to say, but it's like in a corporate firm you're just glorified clerks, but in litigation you actually try to
Right.
change someone's life. So I mean, this is just his opinion, but then what I'm trying to say is, I think pro bono litigation and so many other things where the social aspect is there, I think when we are connected more to the society, I think ma'am can also add to this when we talk about the reforms that are needed in legal education, how we need to be more closer to the society, because legal aid cannot be an elective or cannot be a subject that you're just doing for the bar council mandate. It can never be that. So I think
Right.
ma'am and others can also add on to
One thing I wanted to add. I think this gap which is in legal education in India. So Indian people are very emotional people, and whenever extrajudicial killing happens in India or police vigilantism happens, the people in India celebrate it. They don't want to question it. They are ready to accept it in any manner. Like we remember the gangster was recently killed, the UP gangster. I'm not remembering his name. So people didn't want to question what really happened.
Yeah.
The media was stopped and everything was there, but people didn't question it, and everybody is okay with it. So I think the problem is this only, that the legal education, lacking legal education. That's why.
So as Jayan and Harita pointed out, it is true that law has come from society only. So earlier, how people were behaving or living in society, that has actually been the creator of law. So if you say family law, then obviously marriages had to happen. Then there were certain issues to codify it. That is how the marital law came into existence. When marriages happened, obviously children were born. Now the children needed some property, so the property law came into existence. That is how partition. So all the laws have come from society only. Even if you see now, every time there is something, a change in the societal value, the law changes. So how cases with children, sexual offences with children increased. So we have a change in the POCSO law. Earlier there was no POCSO Act, but then we had to bring that in. Now the definition of a juvenile has changed. It is because of the changing society in the mindset of people. So the law is always changing. It is very dynamic. It has to be dynamic, because if the law does not adapt itself to the present times, to the current times, then it becomes obsolete. It is of no use. So what you just spoke about these killings of Vikas Dubey and all, yes, it is not to be celebrated. We should never give so much power in the hands of a institution or in the hands of a person. that our constitution fails in front of them. So the constitution and certain values and fundamentals were put into place to ensure that injustice never happens. So there is a possibility that if you go to the courts, the justice might be a little slow. But
Yeah, right.
the only reason why it is slow is that injustice should not happen to anybody. A lot of times, innocent people get framed. They have been into jails, behind the bars for a long, long time. And if somebody thinks that acha, because they were a gangster and they should be killed and kills them, then there's nothing greater injustice than that. A person changes every single day. So somebody who was whatever the person was yesterday, there might be a change and he may want to become a good citizen in the future. So that opportunity has to be given. Since we do not have, there are two things that are not controlled by anybody, that should not be controlled by anybody's birth and death, of course. So nobody has a right to kill anybody. When at least in our country, in India, our constitution gives us that right.
So there were like two aspects, opposite aspects. Like here we celebrated the killing of the Vikas Dubey, and when the other case was the Hyderabad case where where a doctor, So they were also killed by police encounters, and people are celebrating encounters.
Yes.
So, but those people also had a right to fair trial or a reasonable. So we
So
were
whenever
like
anything
celebrating both the
happens in
things.
a hurry, be very sure that justice was not served. So anything that happens in a hurry or at the just to satisfy that moment or the people at that moment, it will never be justice. So if those 4 people were killed in Disha's case in Hyderabad, now there is no proof whether they were really involved in the act or not,
Yeah.
or was it somebody else who was involved in the act? Because similar thing happened in Kathua rape, wherein 8 people
Correct.
were found to be accused, and out of that, after trial for nearly 2.5 years, it was found out that one person was not present at the site only. He was physically not there, whose name was already was included in the FIR. So what if at that time Jammu Kashmir police would have shot all 8 of them? Then we could have never reached to this conclusion and an innocent person would have died. So then what happens to justice in the country?
Ma'am, with these extrajudicial killing on rise, they're actually trying to imply that, law is not that powerful and going out of law is like really helpful. And it may like serve the justice quickly then
The
if
momentary
you,
justice.
yeah.
The momentary justice.
It is momentary justice, and it is also giving a lot of power in the hands of police. So police already has a lot of powers in their hands. I don't understand how police can slap somebody in the public or abuse them in the public. I still can't find which provision empowers them with that. In the name of public peace and tranquility, they do anything and everything. I have been searching, reading to find a provision where it empowers the police to, physically abuse anybody in public. So I may be a citizen who has, worked so hard to get so much reputation, and then I encounter a policeman jisko main jante bhi nahi hu, and suddenly, just because he thinks that his ego has been hurt, he can just pull me by my shirt and take to police station. I mean, who has given them that power?
Yeah.
It is not there anywhere. But this has not been questioned. Initially, the police came into existence because it came during the British era. So during the British era, the British government wanted to regulate the Indians, who were not listening to them. They wanted an institution who can scare them, put them into fear, so that they listen to them. And that is why the police came into picture. But after independence, the police should have understood that, now we are an independent and free India, and the training should have been in a different manner. Even today, the police thinks itself to be, I can't use those words, but thinks itself to be really powerful in a way that, they think that they are the law and order.
Ma'am, so we need good media laws, we need new police laws, we need more amendments.
Reform in legal education.
Yeah.
Reform legal education, right?
I think ma'am like brought up this really interesting point about how which provision exactly
Yeah.
empowers the police. But I think it's also important to notice, because when you think of law, I think for law students the way they perceive it is very different. But for a common man, the first point of invoking a law is through the police. Like
Right.
anything and everything, the way we've been seeing through media and movies and serials and whatnot. So the first point at which they invoke law, or they think that there is a problem, they feel that the police is the first person who can be of help to them, right? So when this institution is a repository of faith of the public, I think they hold a position which is akin to something that is as like how much ever we respect the laws, I think that much respect goes to police as well, because
Right.
the amount of public, all of them, they believe that the police will be of help to them, right? So when they endorse this sort of momentary justice, or when they indulge in certain conduct which is not really expected out of them being a repository of such public faith, I think that's when the genuine police officers and police officers who have really worked a lot in order to get things to where it is today, I think that kind of credibility also somewhere along falls short because of certain isolated incidents. And that should not really be the case, because the police are the first point of contact for a common man. And I think there is a requirement of some sort of a revamp of the structure wherein
Yeah, correct.
they are also the faith of the public in police should not get diminished at any point in time. So I think that is where we need to rethink this whole structure. And like ma'am said, they came after the whole concept after independence did require revamp, but nevertheless it's not too late.
Coming to the practical aspect, common man is not comfortable going to the police.
Yes.
So they do not want to go to the police, no matter what. They're like,
When
"Yes,
we
ko
see
bahar hi
them,
settle."
we go back again.
Also,
Yeah,
ma'am,
they're not.
the notion of police handling the law and order in their hands. So, like, are the people having these ideas by looking at movies such as Singham, which shows like the policeman himself going after the
Glorifying
criminal
police.
and killing him? Yeah, are these movies glorifying the police?
Brutality also and vigilantism. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a very impractical movie, and it's a movie
Masala
so
movie.
realizing that there should be police like this, but there exists none like this.
Yeah.
So the idea of going to the police is very scary to common man. They do not want to go to the police station, even if they are witness to something. They do not wish to go to the police station. They say, if you want to come home and take a statement, I am okay, but I am not going to the police station. So that is a kind of fear that general public has. So if educated public has that fear, I wonder what illiterates and how they are treated. I myself have seen videos. I have not seen anybody being mistreated in front of me, but I have seen videos wherein poor people are mistreated in police stations like anything. And I don't know, with that
But
kind
I
of
think with the growing society, we also as humans are losing that concept of empathy. We also work towards, our ambition for ourselves and everything. I think as humans also we are not doing like very good. I think our thoughts, our ideas, our ethics are all on internet maybe, but not in
yeah.
real life. I think even we as humans we are at lacking at some point.
Adding to this also, I think, I don't know, this problem is with India or other countries also, that Indians, they give their loyalty to political institutions, but instead of that, they should command accountability from them. And they're always been very
Absolutely.
emotional people, and they always
Very
like
good
they'll
point.
yeah, they've been like they support them like their life depends on it, and they always take two sides. They always think in black and gray, black and white. I mean, and they
There's no
never think there's no granite. Yeah, exactly. So the Indian people should command accountability from all political institutions or federal institutions like political parties, police, or maybe even the legal side, but they don't do that.
But the same thing happens when we ask for accountability. Either we are killed or either we are taken to jail.
Yeah,
And see,
that's what's
what are
happening in the
the
country also.
psychosis they're trying to induce. They say that when India got its independence, we were democratic. So Loktantra in Hindi, we were supposed to have Loktantra, but even till today, Rajtantra exists. So the Loktantra was democracy, we the people, by the people, for the people, right?
Mhm.
Even then, voting to hoti hai, but we are so influenced and we don't know who we are voting and why we are voting for, and then we don't know how to ask them questions. We think that we cannot ask them questions, although it is our vote that has made them who they are. And remember, they are the people we chose to represent us,
Mhm.
Yeah.
not to,
Rule us.
not to rule or regulate us.
Mhm.
They are supposed to be our voices. Take our concerns to the parliament, ensure that our concerns are taken care of, and give us a remedy. They
And
are
also,
not. Yes,
I
yes,
wanted to
please.
ask, is
also
this
when
crackdown on
interviews are
dissent happening?
go ahead, Jan, go
I,
ahead.
sorry. So I wanted to ask, is this crackdown on dissent happening right now only, or has it been happening from since 1947 and it is coming in limelight right now?
So it so happens that whenever anything blends, as I said earlier, so till the time it is blending, it is fine. But when it becomes excess, that is when you notice. So when the salt
Mhm.
is blending in the food, you know it's okay. But when
Mhm.
it is excess, you're like, "Aaj namkeen zyada hai." So similarly, this is what is happening with us. That now it has gone over a certain level that we are not able to take it. It is above our threshold limit, and that's why we are realizing it.
Yes, I think Jain brought up a very good point with respect to talking about dissent. And I think it's a very healthy thing to have in a democracy. Like we've always spoken about how opposition is the watchdog of democracy. And to have voices of dissent to point out where things are going wrong is in no means to say that you are wrong and I am right. It's just to enhance the efficiency of the working of the government and maximum governance more than me or you. We keep the public, it's supposed to be the public's welfare which is supposed to be kept
Important. Right.
important. But I
Yes.
think a lot of it has to do with the blame game about you are not doing
Mhm.
this right or I am
Yeah.
not doing this right,
Right.
Yeah.
instead of having an that's exactly brings me back to my previous point that we are not open to hearing the other side. I
Mhm.
think
Exactly.
yes, even in the parliament, I mean, the whole essence of having a parliament with diverse people, diverse opinions, diverse communities, cutting across all sorts of barriers, is to have a forum of discussion. But I think in the recent
Absolutely.
times, it has been so that the parliament is functioning as an office where things are put to place and things go. There's no discussion, debate, and that forms a very crucial part of the way India came up with its constitution in itself. We had a constituent assembly, and those debates actually, if you go to trace the origins of certain provisions, when you read those
Yes.
debates, you understand the essence of why this is why, like why have we come up with this. So I think discussion and
Absolutely.
deliberation is very important in a democracy, and curbing dissent in any form is just going to at ultimately you might silence one person, but what impact it's going to cause to the public at large
Mhm.
is someone is taking up that initiative, because obviously 121 billion people cannot voice their opinions. They have certain people who do I think it should not be taken as something which is negative, rather channelize it in a positive direction and actually work out a solution instead of blaming one another, is what my personal opinion is about. Dissent is actually healthy. We always perceive conflicts to be something which is unhealthy, but
Mhm.
dissent and conflicts are extremely healthy if you perceive it in the right sense. So I think that is where dissent is very
Dissent
important.
and opposition, as you said, having a strong opposition is also very important. Only then the government works in the right direction.
Yeah.
So probably last so many years, the current government was able to. Probably they failed at their role as an opposition, and that's why a lot of things could not be done. Or if I see it in the other way, a lot of thing was done. So even before you build a house, there is a basic uh, uh, क्या बोलते हैं उसको the basic in जो what do you call it, foundation, right?
Foundation.
Basic foundation has to be laid. So probably they were laying the foundation till now. And now was the time to build the other stories, and that is what the current government could do. So they actually encashed on whatever foundation was already laid. What you can see it in two ways, that either the opposition was so weak for last 50-60 years that they could not force the government to do much, or the government was doing and the opposition any which ways had no role to play, and now when they became the government, since they had no voices, they do not want any voices against them, right? So that may be one reason why they're trying to curb these voices. Second could be that this opposition is so strong that it is making the government to work, and that's why they are doing so many things, that they have that fear that okay, otherwise they will make the noise. They have been making the noise, no doubt about it, even if we say that it's politics, but they have been making that noise, and that noise is important. Because if the noise is not there, already, I don't know if you guys have heard about the farmer bills, but those three farmer bills were passed in very haste. Yeah, if you go through those farm bills, there are a lot of negative aspects to it. Expecting farmers to know so much and be legally sound and a lot of other things. I did not find them very apt, and I also did not find any reason why it should have been passed in such a haste. That whatever you were supposed to give to the
what was shocking was it was passed when the opposition parties are protesting outside the parliament.
Yeah, there were like 15 or 20 members were present in the Rajya Sabha.
There was no discussion only.
Absolutely, there was no discussion, and then it was passed in a haste. So why there was no clarity why it was done in such a way? Even when you see the labor bill now, there are a lot of provisions that will impact employment in India. So the way employment was and the way employment is now, see, again we are moving back to an era where labor had no rights.
Okay.
So it's a step in a backward direction. We are supposed to be moving in the forward direction. We understand that investments are required, and that's why you need to have easier norms for the companies, but you have to have equal rights for the laborers also. You cannot compromise on their rights. When we have ratified certain treaties, certain UN treaties or UN acts, then we have to ensure that we also stand by it. So we are moving in a backward direction. So if you're saying that workers are allowed to work overtime but no overtime pay for them, then that's moving in the backward direction.
Yeah.
So in America, what happens? Before these, like in India, we have MLA elections. So before these guys who are representing the people, there's an open platform interview kind of a thing of each candidate. Wherein the public gathers and they can question them and they have to answer to those questions right then and there. So it's live, it's face to face. We should also have something like yeah, so there should be those, if there are 5 candidates, they should decide on a date that on that day we'll have a public open forum interview. And then we go and we interview them, ask them those questions, and then decide that who's more capable and who has that vision and who would be able to be our voice.
Right.
A lot of these people are not, they can't voice out for themselves. They are falling in the feet of others, what they will voice out for us. Right.
And also
so
going back to yes, ma'am, I think
yes.
Harita,
Please, Harita.
yes.
Okay, no, I think ma'am brought it a very important point about how we have no awareness about the kind of representatives that we are going to choose. Mostly it's just based on the person who is most popular or the person we have seen most on like newspapers rather than merit, because merit as a criteria as in merit in the sense that how will they be able to represent our interests irrespective of their identity as a person. When I say identity, it's inclusive of everything. So more or less, when we choose a representative, it shouldn't. I mean, I do understand that we do need representatives who can voice our interests, but why do we have to have that parochial notion that only if they belong to the particular,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, they will be representing our interests? It's just about having merit as a criteria, as a person who can understand your problems, because at the end of the day, we are all human beings. I think we should flow above the fact that we are divided by all of this and united by humanity as a force. So I know this is nowhere legal, there's no legal backing to what I'm saying, but there is just the fact that we are all humans at the end of the day, and we have the cognitive ability to understand the problems of another individual. That way,
Yes.
merit is a criteria for representing our interests in a bigger forum, whatever the forum be it, that should be it. But how well do even educated people know about the kind of candidates who are representing us? We just see
And
who's the
the
person who is most
criteria
popular.
to fight elections, the criteria to fight election is basic. You have to be graduate, you have to be 21-year-old, and you have to be a citizen of India. So you, me, and every other person in the locality can stand for those elections. But why is it that not everybody? So
We don't.
if there is a competitive exam, we have lakhs of people writing exam for doctors, writing exam for engineers. Why don't we have lakhs of people applying for that position of MLA?
Correct.
Why are we so blinded by parties? Why are we so blinded, or why we don't think that we can also enter into that area? We can create competition, because wherever there is competition, we find the best.
Yeah.
True. I think that's really true. I think
Why is it that
among
nobody
the
wants to get into it? It's
I
a
think
fear
it's
psychosis.
Yeah.
true, ma'am. I think it's the fact that we have commonly criticized politics to be something that is so far from us, where
Yes.
we don't believe that we
True.
can volunteer to be a part of the change. We think that some messiah should come and solve our problems. But sadly, we don't think that we can start the change. And I think more and more people who have knowledge of all of this, I think when they enter the politics arena, it doesn't have to be. It can, like I said, it can be a very healthy thing about people questioning us and us answering in terms of work instead of replies, answering in terms of performance, in terms of delivery of the targets that we have performed. How many of us even verify like the manifesto, whatever that is proposed and promised to us? We don't even verify whether after this thing, after like 5 years or 4 years, have they done what they have promised.
Promise.
We
Yeah.
are so guided by our own I think we don't pay enough attention to all of this. We don't choose
Although
our
they
leaders
answer
wisely, then
much
we
more
do.
than anything else. We should
And
Actually,
question
all
the
because we see politics
state.
not as a proper profession that is to be practiced by like all the common people, but it's like it's just a bad thing to go into politics. It is not safe, and all these other things also they come into because we don't see politics on the same level as we see law or we see engineering. Like maybe this is one reason, one set
So
background
we
that
see
we are grown
politics
up with.
as dirty, and we still expect those people to come out
People,
clean.
yeah,
Yeah.
and we also expect, yeah.
And also, like adding to what Khyati said, I think it's also about the fact that people who have no backing in the family, as in a person who already has been in politics, I think they kind of fear to enter into this arena. Oh, I don't have any sort of backing. Like I have no family legacy to stand by. So how will I, be a leader? How will people relate to me? So I
The
think
practical
bringing,
aspect to it, Harita, is
yeah.
even if somebody tries, the already existing people will not let them.
Ma'am, we should not
Whether
talk
Ma'am,
about nepotism. Ma'am,
whether
please,
it's
we
ma'am,
should not.
but isn't that the same in every profession? I mean, even if you go for
Exactly.
law, that will happen.
so we can talk about nepotism here.
No, ma'am, please. No.
Yes, so nepotism exists in every profession.
Yes, it does, it does. And it is true to
We've
its
been
essence
surviving with
also.
it, isn't it? We have fought it and we have made our ways. We've broken the glass ceiling so many
Exactly,
times.
yes. Yes.
So then why is it suddenly highlighted so much? It was always existing.
Ma'am, it was maybe a scapegoat topic with the Sushant Singh Rajput case. It just grew because people need to talk about something. So it
Something.
was nepotism,
Yeah.
I guess.
I think
Just to
similarly
gain
when
a few eyeballs.
died down.
Probably also because the fact that over like over so many months we've been talking about this issue, and we've kind of lost sight of a lot of other issues which
Right.
needed more public attention, which needed people. I think this kind of overshadowed. I mean, due respect to all of them who tried. I think all the media houses who investigated even more than the police to find out what it is, but due respect there, but still, I think we lost sight of many issues that could have probably been effective points of discussion during the lockdown instead of being stuck to
Absolutely.
one issue.
I mean, what about the unemployment during the pandemic or Chinese on
Yeah.
our mountain tops? What about that? Who's going to discuss about that? Even the social and political aspects surrounding the Hathras case. I
This
mean, it
also,
was
I think,
only after the girl was shifted to the hospital in Delhi, the
in
media
Delhi,
thought,
yeah.
okay, then let's talk about this now.
In fact, I think that case gained even more traction when the police
Yeah,
took part in
cremated
the
or
cremated. In fact, many
Mhm.
people came to know about this particular case only after that.
Only after.
Like
Yeah.
Kushi, I think, is being optimistic by saying that it received media traction even before. But I think only when the cremation happened is when many people even knew such a thing like had happened, and you know, a lot of things, a lot of lapses that happened because of that. I think that just went unnoticed. So yeah, in fact, like
ma'am, you're
talking.
mute. Yeah.
Yeah, and after that, I think we saw a lot of power that the police has, and
Yes,
how
again.
things were all regulated, how the voices were trying to be curbed,
Mhm.
how things were portrayed in a different sense to the extent that it was said that it was not rape only.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And now the same case has been politicized to another level. Like now it has become a subject of politics. So this is something bad about politics that we can say, that people are
So
finding.
I think whenever something is sensationalized by media, it gets politicized automatically.
Yeah.
Till the time it is not sensationalized. So earlier we used to have these panel talks. So the media would invite people with knowledge in a particular area. So those were knowledgeable people, not just spokesmen of parties. Okay, I don't expect the spokesman of a party or a party speaker to know everything.
Yeah.
I don't think that they need to be there on every panel debate.
Right.
So
And also the same person going on every channel. Yeah.
Every
And
channel.
not taking
same thing
names.
again. Not taking names.
So earlier there were experts who used to come and who would give their opinion, and people would decide according to that opinion that okay, this is how it is. But now when you see, obviously the experts don't want to come. The way the anchor behaves, the
Anchor.
host behaves with them. Oh my God, who would want to go and put their reputation at stake?
Right.
So the experts have stopped coming. So finally, it has only become a political fight on the TV. So panel talks used to be a point of attraction for me in news channels earlier, but now I don't want to look at a panel discussion.
and all this topic.
So
I
when
think in the midst of
why was the girl burnt, they said why are they asking now when she is burnt?
Burnt. Right.
So are you trying to say that their voices should be curbed because they are late, or they cannot raise a point now, it is out of limitation period? That when she's in the hospital that time, why you didn't come? I mean, that is illogical. So you don't want to hear these kind of things on the media, that they are giving nonsense, illogical explanations to their act. We watch TV to get some expert opinion, as in, we'll get to know something new about this. But then what you see is that it is only made up or politicized.
Right.
I wanted to ask this.
Yes.
Yeah. So why does this question comes? This ethical question comes when it comes in respect to media. So why do they, why has journalism, the level of journalism fallen so low? Is it because of the media houses themselves, or because people want to, consume that kind of journalism only? So that's why these kinds of things are happening. And any other media house like NDTV, they go like they are a bit off stream, and so people don't accept their journalism, and these things are there. Like people don't want to listen anybody who's saying anything else. So is this a circle, or is some?
I'll just tell you
some
my
other part of
observation.
it?
It may not be the right thing, but my observation when it comes to media houses, uh, these are private media channels, right? So they have their own set of expenses, so commercial bit is there. Then there is consumerism, definitely. So there is competition. Now, most of these media houses were or are funded by some party or the other.
Agendas.
So then obviously some biasness, some kind of a favoring, so some kind of a that element comes into them. So if you have to watch, if you want to know the truth of a topic, you go and watch like 4 different channels from 4 different parties, and that is when you can arrive logically at something.
Like
So
here we're
probably
discussing
private
only.
news could be the reason.
I think now the online news is a better option to see. Like many things, the print is there.
Again, there is no authenticity to online news. That is
Yeah.
that is another thing that we are not sure whether this is true or not. How do you verify?
But a
Then
new
there are online
concept in media houses is rising where they're asking the public to invest and fund the houses, media houses themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way,
Yeah.
they can serve the public and not the
Crowdfunding.
interest of the funders.
Fire.
Yes.
But
I
again,
think that can
that's
be
very
also-
difficult to follow. That
Yes.
scheme is very difficult to follow.
That's right. You know how many houses you will fund or how many houses you'll support, because there are so many channels. So although they earn from advertisements, they earn from a lot of other things. I think what they should focus at is the salary structure also. Why should some anchors' salaries run into such a huge amount that they could have paid half the office? So probably benchmarking that and cutting down the expenses on that, because the same job can be done by anybody who has reasonable experience.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need somebody to keep shouting on the TV all the time.
Which is their face value.
So the face value is what you can earn. It would be just a starting issue, but otherwise you can earn that. But they don't need to be paid so much.
Yes, ma'am. I think we have come a long way from like pre-independence, where newspapers and all of these means of communication used to be a uniting factor to bring people
Yes.
together for a cause.
Yes.
In fact, like a lot of the freedom struggle gained a lot of traction when newspapers, where people started feeling that education or information is empowerment. But today,
Yes.
when we see this vast amount of information that, sometimes we feel like we can't keep track of the news even despite reading newspapers. There's just vast amount of information, but in our minds we're just questioning the legitimacy of that information, whether it is true or not. I think that's where the need for some sort of media law is very important, where it's not just regulations, but where we read a news and we feel like we are empowered instead of questioning whether this is correct, or am I being a prey to someone's ideological orientations or anything of that sort. I think when you read a particular information, you need to feel empowered from it instead of questioning every single news article or every single news piece that you hear. I think that is where true empowerment does lie.
One more thing, I think in our country, this pride comes from identity also, and these political parties, they exploit this pride which comes from our identity. And I haven't seen this in other countries because those people are very individualistic, and India people are considered not as an individual self but as a mass. So of course we're not taking names, but people want to bank upon these pride which comes from identity. And I don't think when will the Indian people come out of this limbo of banking upon their identity.
I think the day when it changes that I am defined by an iPhone or a Gucci or a whatever brand I am wearing, then what my values are, probably that day things will start changing. So if I am being known as a honest, dedicated person, and then I take pride in that, than taking pride in wearing a Rado watch and going around. So maybe that is the day when change will start coming in, and this has to start with youngsters. Because these brands have actually influenced youngsters so much. A lot of Punjab, Delhi, I would say, this is where I have seen that this culture has actually brought a lot of criminal element.
Agreed. Ma'am, and it is
Yes.
a long way. Like, we also don't see people, ma'am, even in law colleges, not naming, but there are no discussions that are happening, or people that are not ready for any new change that is happening. For them, law is just a degree. They are not, connected to it. Like, they just don't want to do anything. It is just for money. Like, there is no, like, they're engulfed in that culture that it is everything
Yeah.
is grand,
So even
grand
to this,
oriented.
whenever there are students who come to me for right. So whenever students come to me for counseling, as in, what subject to go for after 12th, should I enter into law? The first question I ask them is, what is your passion? If you want to do law, what is it that attracts you in law? So if the answer is money, name, fame, then I say, then don't do it, please. So if somebody says that I feel that I'll be able to connect to the people and try to resolve their issues or problems, that if I can help in some way or contribute in some way, that is only when you should do law. Like, you should have a cause close to your heart. I am not saying that everybody should become get into social service, but law and social service goes hand in hand. It is not separate. An element of whether you do a PIL, whether you do a free pro bono, whether you do a free legal aid, all these are part of social service.
Yeah.
You are doing because you see that there is a cause which is impacting so many people and it is wrong. So when you see anything wrong and that pinches you and you think that you will voice out and you will fight for it, then you should go and do law.
Ma'am,
Normally
we still don't have that culture.
Yes.
Yeah, Tari.
We don't have
Ma'am,
that
I
culture.
realized about pro bono actually from American TV series Suits, legal drama.
Mhm.
So, do you think that what, according to you, are the reasons pro bono is still not on a level playing field in India?
So, see, with India, the biggest problem comes with population. And most of our population is middle class to BPL, right?
Yeah.
Pro bono was supposed to be given to very, very poor people who cannot afford legal services at all. But, injustice should not happen to them. And that is why pro bono was introduced. That whoever can help them do it with their own they can volunteer. Or state legal services were given wherein lawyers are assigned certain cases and the state pays them, but they do not charge from the those who are in needy, who are needy. Right. So pro bono culture, when it comes to state legal services, state legal aid, it is existing, it is running, and a lot of people are getting help from there. But when it comes to pro bono private, somebody who wants to volunteer on their own or do a certain things, that is not very existent. So lawyers have not understood the importance of it, or probably have not realized that it is important to give certain number of hours, or at least in a month give certain time to that pro bono service, which could help in uplifting the society or changing the societal thought process, or changing the societal way in which things are working. I have picked up that, as in I ensure that at least on the weekends I dedicate some time out. So sexual harassment at workplace is something that I am working on. And then women laws, because I normally do this in Rajasthan. So here there's a lot of issues when it comes to women being aware of their rights. So even in cities, I would say women are aware of their rights, but even then they're not able to voice, even though they are aware of their rights. But here they're not aware of their rights. So there is a particular village in Rajasthan wherein the same woman is a wife for 3 brothers. And she thinks that, she is just a machine to produce children and do household work and go to farms and do that work. So she's being utilized, I mean violated as a human being. And but she's okay with it because she doesn't know her rights. She thinks that, okay, that's the norm in the village. So there's a particular village in which people have very small farmlands. So they think that if the brothers get married to separate girls, it will be divided. So that will not be enough for them. So they just marry one girl, so they are together. But then that's violation, huge violation of human rights.
Right, right.
Yes.
Yeah. So we pick up
Ma'am,
certain
like in US,
cases.
like in
I think
US, they have like any lawyer who wants to, to get admitted in the bar or whatever, they need to do a certain amount of hours of pro bono practice. So
Right.
if there is something like in India, and if all the lawyers, like even like all the advocates, if they even take a single case in a month, so that will not only help like people because they'll be getting good law services, but actually the dealing of the cases, the pending cases that we have, they'll be resolved. And also like people like us who graduate fresh, and if we get a pro bono case, so it is a good learning experience. It is actually a good on ground experience for us. And this is the same culture that is in America. Like new pass outs, they get pro bono cases, they fight independently. So
Mm-hmm.
I believe that there should be something in India too where they make some law so that then only you will be elevated as a high court judge or as a controller general or what.
So in India, BCI regulates this for the lawyers, and yes,
Hmm.
there is an element of pro bono wherein if you have put in pro bono service or if you've done pro bono work, then that is an added advantage. That is even there in India also.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah, but then coming to students, what you said, I think students are asked to do internships in law offices, and they
hmm.
are supposed to clear a certificate. I think if the colleges can, instead of making it as a law office, say that you go to a certain village and do an awareness session of whatever you have read, and that should become a criteria instead of getting a internship certificate from the law
Certificate.
office. Because yes, definitely once you pass out, you will do some work and learn the law office work. That's not a big deal. It's pretty much a lot of clerical and drafting and research work that you can do. But going to those villages or going to nearby areas where you think that people need that awareness and making people aware of their rights, or wherever you think there's a human right violation that has happened, if you go there and give your services, that is a much better practical experience than interning in a law office during your second or third year. It does not make much sense. Till the time you're in your fifth year, it does not make much sense to do any internship in law offices.
Right. So I think
So
this is the basic aim of Niti Manthan through this Viral Q program itself, that we are also going and doing the small awareness things project.
Definitely.
So
yes.
I think we'll end it, and I think it was a really good discussion that we all had. Like guys, if you want to add any point, please do.
Uh, no, I think I would like just take this moment to thank ma'am for sparing her time for this session, because I think it really added a whole different dimension, because I think we were all thinking unidimensionally. She gave a very holistic approach to this discussion. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
ma'am, and hope I think Kathy has told you about the Wild Cube program through which we aim to conduct small yet impactful legal awareness initiatives. And knowing that you yourself are taking time out despite your busy schedule every week to do your bit for legal awareness, I think that's truly something remarkable. And I think every legal professional, every law student, in fact every student in general, can take something from can take that bit of inspiration from you. And I think it also furthers the spirit of Wild Cube to have such people having support to this program. And we hope that we can have you as a part of patronizing this program, and spreading the word about this program and the kind of initiatives that Niti Manthan is coming up with. I think it was a really fruitful discussion. I think having all of you with different diverse educational backgrounds also added a lot to this discussion. So that's all that I would like to say. Thank
Yeah,
you, ma'am.
definitely
Thank you
our
all.
research minds have, brightened up like any other bit related to the needs of laws, better discussions or research, research angle and everything. So I think, yeah, Khushi, Tariq, Jain, if you want to say anything, please do,
Thank you, ma'am.
guys.
It was like really beneficial and fruitful experience for all, learning experience for us.
We learned a lot.
Thank you everyone. Thank you Harita, Khyati, thank you Tariq, thank you Khushi, thank you Jayan. It was wonderful session. I really enjoyed discussing with you. Only one takeaway that I would want all of you to take as law students. Always try to keep law as simple and as close to society as possible. Don't complicate it so that a common man can understand it and they can relate to it rather than running away from it. So let's try to keep law simple so that people can use it more to their benefit.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect.
Thank you so much. It was
Thank
a really
you. Thank you
fruitful
so much,
session.
ma'am, for
Thank you,
giving your
ma'am.
time.
Thank you.
Good
Thank
day,
you.
bye.
Krati and team.